Donald Trump is doing his job. He found a way to end the ongoing unrest in Oregon, namely Portland, without invoking the Insurrection Act, sending in the military or federal law enforcement, which probably would have been a disaster. Military came in, locals would have been outraged, it would have been all over the press, and that's exactly what the left wanted. Instead, DHS has deputized state police, so the arrests they make will be prosecuted by federal attorneys. What does that mean? The local district attorney was cutting the rioters loose, dropping charges. We know that the Antifa crackpot killer actually was arrested on some gun charges previously, released, and the charges dropped. And then he went on to kill a Trump supporter after stalking him hand on weapon. Many people have said if he was properly prosecuted for the crimes that he committed, this would not have happened. Well, by deputizing the state police, it remains a local affair, but the feds can prosecute these individuals. And now the far left is starting to freak out. On this website, which is I believe it's the Portland Defense Group, the Portland General Defense Committee. They've posted this blog as of yesterday. GDC statement on recent visits to defendants by the FBI. And here it comes. Trump is aware what's going on. Trump has been calling for law and order, and the media is desperate to get the narrative off of the riots, even though just the other day in Rochester, just last night, they committed one of the most atrocious acts yet. Now, I know the murders are the worst part, but in terms of shocking the public to their core, they raided a restaurant and attacked regular people. And I know many of you may be saying, Tim, the murders were way worse. No, I know. But do you think regular people are paying attention to what's going on? What happens if a bunch of crazy individuals screaming Black Lives Matter flip tables and shove you out of a restaurant? That's going to wake you up because they're kicking your door in. Oh, yeah, the news is some far off land. But when they come to your house, that's when people start waking up, when they start going after regular people. You see, with this Trump supporter, the left is trying to claim self-defense and all this other nonsense. What we saw, is bad. And that's why the media and Joe Biden are getting very, very desperate. So this segment isn't necessarily going to be about rehashing what's going on with the riots, but I want to point out what I think Trump is doing well and what the DHS is doing well. And I'll point out right away. Joe Biden's strategy right now is to complain that Donald Trump said mean words. I kid you not. He didn't even want to go to Kenosha until he saw his poll numbers were going down. And think about this. While all of this violence and riots are erupting, what did Joe Biden do? He held a press conference because Trump said mean words. Is that who you want in charge? Not me. Well, let's read this statement from the GDC because it's a little bit cathartic, I guess. They say, we have confirmed reports of the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigation, visiting people's homes in the last week or so. The result of some of these visits is that people with state charges, whether they have been no complained or not, are being arrested by the FBI for federal charges of a similar nature. Below are some steps to dealing with an FBI visit. Amazing. The state is cutting them loose, and the feds are showing up and saying, nope, and arresting them. Bravo. Smart move. It is still a local crime, and the feds will take care of it. Now, they list a bunch of things they want you to do, and they give some advice. Let's read this. They say, do not talk to the police. Just don't talk. It is the safest approach for yourself, your friends, your comrades, and the community. Now, that's a good answer. I mean, you should not always have your lawyer present. And I want to make sure this is clear. I think it's insane to demonize every single police officer. I think it's insane to call for defunding and abolishing police. I think the smart approach is reform, more funding, and proper training, and potentially new divisions that can deal with certain calls. I also think it's fair to point out we have a bunch of cops that have been going around, in many instances, standing down and allowing this to happen. Now, I understand they're upset about this, right? Okay. But they're still following the orders of individuals who have political motivations, and they use the police for their political aspirations. When the Portland mayor tells these cops to stand down and they say, okay, they are sacrificing the safety of the community because they were told to. Maybe they shouldn't. I don't know. But you also have cops arresting business owners. You also have police officers in New York defending illegal street murals paid for illegally by taxpayer money for the political aspirations of de Blasio. I am no fan of these individuals. Reform is the simple solution. To call for abolishing law and order is insane. Still, some of this advice is good. Yeah, don't talk to cops. Have your lawyer available. Here's what they say. Don't answer the door unless they have a warrant. you do not have to open the door. If you open the door by accident, say, I am busy right now and can't talk, and close the door, or I am not going to answer any questions without my lawyer present. You can ask for a card from the agent, but again, be careful because they are going to try to engage you in conversation in any way. They say, do not lie to the FBI. It is a crime with the potential for 5 to 7 years in federal prison. Saying, I don't know, can count as a lie if they have evidence you might actually know something. The FBI uses this tactic of getting people to lie as a way to pressure them to turn on their comrades. Sounds familiar. Sounds like they may have done that to a particular national security advisor. If federal agents come to your door with a legitimate arrest warrant, you may want to step outside your door as quickly as possible and lock your house behind you. If the cops come inside to get you, they can and will search your house. If law enforcement has a warrant, read the warrant and take a photograph of it before letting them in. And they say, if you have been visited, call this number. If you were arrested on state charges, interfering with a peace officer, unlawful direct laser, anything like this, you may want to take some preventative measures in case you are visited and or arrested by federal law enforcement. They say create a support plan with your friends. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read you what they're advising the far left to do, and then I'm going to also add my own advice for them to help them out, okay? And you will appreciate this. 1, they say create a support plan with your friends, comrades, and family to prepare. This link will take you to a series of questions to help with your plan. Or, alternatively, my advice would be don't assault police officers and point lasers in their eyes. Also, refrain from rioting. 2, talk to your housemates, partners, lovers, or anyone else whose home you spend significant time in about what could happen. For example, talk through a police visitation, your arrest, or a subpoena to a grand jury, along with what your friends and family should do if the state shows up and talks to them. Or alternatively, don't assault police officers, shine lasers in their eyes, and refrain from rioting. 3, leave a poster or a sticker or note by the door reminding yourself and others that you not need to open the door. Yes. And also remember, you should say, I will be remaining silent and I want to speak with a lawyer. And again, alternatively, you could just refrain from rioting, don't assault police officers or shine lasers in their eyes. They say if it is possible, the state may visit your family at work, an organization. Yeah, we get it. Yeah, okay. And you get it too. Stop rioting. They say make a support plan. They're just saying the same thing over and over again. Set up a system with your organization or group. Now there's the interesting one. Set up a system with your organization or group of friends to communicate quickly with each other in the event of a visitation, arrest, or subpoena. Alternatively, don't join terrorist organizations. Don't go around rioting, trying to burn down police stations with people locked inside. So anyway, they're running scared. This shows that Donald Trump is being effective. And guess what Joe Biden did? Nothing. He slept in his basement. I ain't going to Kenosha. You mean I got to do work? I'm not doing that. That was a big, big mistake. Right now, the riots are ongoing. Frank Luntz, probably the most prominent pollster, was even tweeting about this when they raided this restaurant. They're attacking regular people, climbing on their homes. You want to know why Joe Biden made a huge mistake trying to shift the news cycle? It was a desperate bid, and boy, are they latching onto it, desperate to say Trump hates the troops. Shut up, I don't care. These people are insane. They're burning buildings down. They're trying to roast human beings alive. And Trump is calling it out. And guess what? As I mentioned before, 9 in 10 voters say civil unrest a key issue in presidential race. Guess what just happened? Joe Biden turned his back on the unrest and the riots to complain that Trump is mean. Trump, on the other hand, has a DHS that is not only targeting the far left, but also targeting white supremacists. Now, some people complained about this. I think it's crafty, and I think it's appropriate. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I believe Trump is still a couple steps ahead. We are watching this political chess game play out. The riots happened. The Democrats actively supported this. Don't take my word for it. Here's how the Democrats and media have responded to months of civil unrest following George Floyd's death. This is just a huge article going through everything Democrats were doing. Please stop calling this a riot. There are other words to describe this as Zerlina. They're riots. Trump said May 29th, I can't stand back and watch this happen to a great American city, Minneapolis. A total lack of leadership. Either the very weak radical left mayor, Jacob Frey, get his act together and bring the city under control, or I will send in the National Guard and get the job done right. Trump has smart people around him, and somehow he manages to stay one or two steps ahead of the left. Now, admittedly, they knocked him off base with this Trump hates the troops thing. And it triggered Trump because I don't believe Trump actually hates the troops at all. And I think, man, when someone lies about you in public and you know it's not true, you get mad about it. So this pulled Trump off the law and order message and tried shifting it back to COVID and Trump's disdain for the troops, which, again, I don't believe. Clever. But it was a tactical error. You know why? Because the riots are still happening. So it was only a matter of time before the narrative shifted. And now, you know what I see? Donald Trump, consistent since day one of the riots. Shut it down. I will send in the National Guard. Joe Biden, nowhere to be found. Joe Biden's campaign staff supporting the rioters. Kamala Harris soliciting donations to bail them out. Then finally, when he's forced out of his basement and he says, I'm not going to Kenosha, but I'll condemn the riots. Then Trump goes. Joe Biden desperately panics and rushes full speed a day later. What do? Unleash the distraction. Trump 2 years ago called troops losers. Not that I believe it, nor do I care. And that was the mistake. Because Joe Biden, as quickly as possible, told America, I don't care that you are suffering. I don't care that they're attacking you. I don't care that they're burning down businesses and attacking you while you try to have a meal. I don't care, says Joe Biden. He's more concerned with Donald Trump saying naughty words. I'm not. I know who Trump is. I've complained about that enough. I get it. That's who he is. Even if it were true, whatever. He said he didn't call John McCain a loser. He did. He should have just said, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't have. That's Trump. I get it. A lot of people like that he does it. You know what I'm more concerned about? They keep raising the bridges in Chicago. There's checkpoints everywhere, cops everywhere, and they quite literally hunted down a man and shot him in Portland. I'm concerned about that. Apparently 9 in 10 Americans are as well. And Joe Biden is a feckless coward hiding in his basement who only comes out because his polls took a hit. Donald Trump has been talking about this since day one. There were no polls coming out when this happened. He said, no, no, no. It wasn't until later we learned that the initial protests helped the Democrats. But Trump has consistently said, no, no, no. Instead, what do we get? The Democrats will say and do anything for political power, and I am sick of it. Joe Biden doesn't care about the riots. He doesn't care about white supremacists, but Donald Trump is willing to call them a terror threat as well. You know why? Because Trump, even if he doesn't agree, is willing to address the issue. So right now, there's a big breaking story. It's trending. Critical race theory. Donald Trump has said, we will, by whatever legal means possible, purge contracts related to teaching about white privilege or critical race theory. At the same time, DHS is saying that white supremacists are the greatest terror threat. Trump's covering all bases. What are you going to say? Well, what about white supremacists? We definitely consider them a threat. And it's true. They are. Are they the greatest? I don't think so. I'm more concerned about the far left. But guess what? Trump is dealing with that too. These are things I care about. You know why? I'll tell you this. I'm biased. I absolutely am. I used to specifically cover conflict and crisis. I would go down to hurricanes, but mostly civil unrest. These are the things that I've always felt like are the most important because it's the fabric of society. Cultural politics plays a role in this, and so does electoral politics. But typically, my beat has always been conflict and crisis. I got started covering Occupy Wall Street. I traveled around the world, Spain, Egypt, Morocco, Brazil, etc. Well, Morocco wasn't unrest, but many of these places I've been to, specifically Ukraine, Venezuela, specifically due to unrest. This is what I am focused on. It's what I care about. That's what I talk about. And guess what? Regular people care about this too. And Donald Trump has been condemning Antifa for some time, for quite some time, calling out the riots. And Joe Biden will not say their name. Feckless coward. And you know what else? Neither will Oregon Governor Brown. Andy No tweeted, Galen Etlin asked Oregon Governor Brown why her statement condemning violence did not include a mention of Antifa. She doesn't answer the question. Instead, she says she named white supremacy because it was her understanding the pro-Trump groups were that. Well, guess what? Donald Trump condemned white supremacist groups. The DHS is saying they're the greatest threat. Why would you assume Trump's supporters are white supremacists when he quite literally calls white supremacy the greatest threat? Trump knows what he's doing, and there are terrifying extremist white supremacists that need to be stopped by the FBI. And I'm more than happy to see the FBI going after them like they have been. And there were a couple of guys who apparently, check this story out. 2 Missouri men arrested en route to Kenosha with assault-style weapons. I don't know or care about the assault-style moniker, whatever you want to call them. A couple of guys had a bunch of weapons, and they were going to Kenosha, and that is dumb, and they shouldn't do it. Now, operating under the assumption, the DOJ, they were illegal weapons, and they were arrested. I'm glad they did this. Apparently crossing state lines with a bunch of weapons that were illegal, and I don't want to know why they were heading to Kenosha. I don't care what their reasoning was. We do not want escalation. We want de-escalation. We want everybody to chill out, go home. It's the far left that won't stop. The last thing we need are right-wing groups joining in. The Boogaloo Boys are getting in trouble as well, but they're not Trump supporters. They're actually more on the side of Black Lives Matter and Antifa in the sense that they're they're more libertarian, more anti-government, more anarcho-right. And not all of them are bad, but some of them are, right? It's true for any group. I've actually met some people who got in protest with Antifa, and I would say they just don't realize the kind of support they're providing. But right now, I have no problem being critical of everybody who is going out and causing escalation. When I look at law enforcement and what Donald Trump's doing and the DHS, it seems to be a cohesive strategy that is working. Never interrupt your enemy when they are making mistakes. Joe Biden, I wouldn't even argue is making mistakes. He's doing what he does. He's negotiating with the terrorists. That's what's happening. Think about this. In Rochester, we saw this insane protest where they stormed through and were knocking tables over, screaming Black Lives Matter. And what did Joe Biden do? That day is when he was like, yeah, but Donald Trump said mean words. Mean words. There was a protest in Rochester the night before. Joe Biden doesn't care about regular people. He doesn't. Unity saw an opportunity to knock Trump down a few pegs. And you know what? The left has run with it. They're worried. They look bad. They were supporting the riots. Trump was right the whole time. Trump will condemn the far right, the far left. But this, I tell you, man, they can't escape it. And Joe Biden is becoming absolutely desperate. He's absolutely desperate. But I think what we can see is there's two different strategies at play. On the Democrat side, Joe Biden's sitting in his basement, ignoring everything while a team does all the work for him. And then they come down and say, here's what you need to say today. And Biden goes, okay. And he has his scripted questions. He doesn't actually know or care what's going on. He doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about your life. He cares about saying what he needs to say to attract the lowest common denominator voter to win. And that's been establishment politics for too long. Donald Trump, on the other hand, is actively running his own show, for better or for worse. Tweeting out, I never called McCain a loser, while he's got a tweet from 2015 where he's literally calling McCain a loser. Not for McCain's service, for losing in 2008. But Donald Trump is clearly stepping up and doing things of his own volition. And that says a lot. I can forgive Trump's faults. I can overlook some of his faults, but I'll be critical of the dumb things he says. No problem. But I'll tell you this. Trump looks at the riots and he says, these riots are awful. You get this guy, I believe it was Christopher Rufo, who said Trump needs to ban critical race theory. That's intersectionality. That's identitarianism. And Trump said yes and made a powerful move. Trump is doing these things. And you know, I'll tell you this. The political campaigns today are completely inverted. It's yin yang, man. Donald Trump is an arrogant, egotistical individual. He knows what's right. He's going to do it. He knows better than you, and he's going to get the job done, for better or for worse. I'm not saying that necessarily in a disrespectful light. I think there are issues with Trump being very arrogant, but he's actively stepping up to do things he thinks needs to be done. Joe Biden, on the other hand, is a puppet candidate who has no idea what's going on. A complete inversion of Donald Trump. Whereas Trump tells people, I want this done. And they go, Trump, you can't actually do that in government. Okay, you have to do it this way. And he's like, why not? I want it done. Trump found a way through the DHS to deal with these extremists. Joe Biden, he's like, I don't want to talk about the extremists. Can we just call Trump naughty words? Actually, I'm sorry. That's disrespectful to Joe Biden. The truth is, Joe Biden has no idea what he's even doing. He's sitting in his chair with the blanket on his lap, and they walk in and say, Uncle Joe, you need to say these things to the camera. Oh, what? Oh, look, fat. I don't know what you want me to read. I'll read it. Okay. And then he reads it. And you know what else? I think one of the reasons Joe Biden gaffes so much is because he doesn't know what was scripted. They're like, read this paper. And he starts reading through it, and he's old and his eyes are bad. And then he struggles to read what they wrote down. He didn't plan it in advance. He didn't write it himself. In fact, his DNC speech was apparently a ripoff of his previous speech with other plagiarism tacked into it. So let me tell you what's up. The feds are moving in. They're starting to go after these extremists, and I'm glad to see it. The rioting and destruction needs to stop. You have a right to peaceably assemble, and that includes sometimes civil disobedience. But that's the line. Violence you do not engage in. That has never been in the Constitution. And they like to go, don't you remember when the founding fathers engaged in violence? And then they said, you know what? We shouldn't allow this in our country. It should be peaceable assembly. In fact, a lot of the conflict was instigated by the regulars. And at the time, many people did consider themselves to be subjects of the crown. It was instigated by those who came here to shut down their efforts. There was no one to fight, duh. Let me make it clear for you when it comes to the American Revolution. The founding fathers in this country were all like, yo, we're independent. Have a nice day. And then they came to they sent the regulars here to quell the rebellion. Sound familiar? A bunch of Trump supporters go to a park and say, we are here to speak. Have a nice day. And Antifa goes, we are going to come in and crush you. You see the difference? They try and act like the American Revolution went to the UK or the Britain at the time, or like, we're going to win our independence by going to you. That makes no sense. So right now, let me wrap this up. Donald Trump is dropping the hammer, and I'm glad he is doing it. There's a lot of things I don't like about this man, but you know what? At this point, with purging critical race theory, I love it. 100%. That is a major issue for me. Shutting down the rioters, keep going, deputize more of these individuals, arrest and prosecute these extremists. They are fomenting this violence, and they travel across state lines anyway. And just no to Joe Biden. And also Donald Trump, no new wars, get the troops out of Afghanistan. You know what? Bring it on. And I'm crossing my fingers for two things. I want Trump, once he gets reelected, to pardon Snowden and Assange. There, I said it. Let's make it happen. Let's end this ridiculous crony corporate capitalist garbage. And to clarify, there's a difference between crony capitalist corporatism and legit capitalism. I'm all for the mixed economy. I just don't like people selling favors and revolving door politics at the federal level. So get them out. Trump can come in, pardon a few people. It'll be a good time. And shut down the extremists. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. It's a different channel, and I will see you all then.